Hey, this is Mrs. Reichelt and welcome back here. This next video we're going to talk about is the systemic and pulmonary circulation as well as some of the physiology of the heart. So this is kind of where the last video left off a little bit. We talked about how systemic circulation is going to the body systems, whereas pulmonary circulation is really responsible for getting oxygenated blood back into the heart. What we didn't talk about last time is how the heart itself, remember the heart is made up of myocardium, so this myo or muscle layer needs blood too. So we're going to go ahead and talk about how the myocardium gets its blood source. We call this coronary circulation. So coronary circulation just has to do with the blood that's in the heart chambers doesn't actually nourish the myocardium. It has to have its own circulation. So in addition to having pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation, you also have coronary circulation. So the first one here, we have our coronary arteries. Arteries are, I always think of, spelling things wrong. I always think of arteries as going away. I think A for away. So coronary arteries are going to branch from the aorta to supply the heart muscle with oxygenated blood. Then you have your cardiac veins. Veins are going to return deoxygenated blood, so it's going to drain the myocardium of the blood. That means it's going to have a lot of carbon dioxide and other wastes in it. Then you have the coronary sinus, which is a large vein on the posterior of the heart, which receives blood from the cardiac veins. And then blood will empty from the coronary sinus back into the right atrium through that coronary sinus. So it goes from the veins to the sinus to the right atrium. So basically that's how your heart goes and gets blood, because your heart is responsible for circulation of everywhere else, but it also has to provide nourishment for itself. All right, the next thing we're going to kind of go through is the conduction system. So this is basically how your heart pumps. How does it know when to pump? So we call this the intrinsic conduction system or the nodal system. Your heart muscles are going to contract without nerve impulses, which is a pretty big deal. It also goes in a regular and continuous way. So here's basically how it's going to start. So let's just make sure we know where we're at. So this little part over here is going to be our right atrium. This is our right ventricle. Over here is our left atrium, and then our left ventricle here. So we have a pacemaker in our heart. We call this the SA node or the sinoatrial node. The SA node is right here. It's going to be what actually initiates the heart to beat. So this is why we call it our pacemaker, because it's keeping your heart's pace or the beating pace. So your SA node is going to be first. The SA node is then going to send an impulse to the AV node. So your AV node is right here. So this is going to be 2. So you start with the SA node, then you go to the AV node. Then basically the AV node is at the junction of the atria and the ventricles. So then the AV node is going to send its impulses to the AV bundle. So the bundles are over here. So it's going to send its impulses of go ahead and contract. So the message is go ahead and contract is what you need to know. So the AV bundle is right there. Then the bundle branches are in the interventricular septum, which you can see right there. And then lastly, the last step here is that impulse is then going to go into the Purkinje fibers. So you're going to start out with the SA node is first, then the AV node is second, then you're going to go to the AV bundle, and then the Purkinje fibers. So the contraction of the heart is initiated by the SA node. Sequential stimulation will occur at other autorhythmic cells. So that means that they're going to contract all at one time because they're they're on an auto cycle. So they're making sure that they're going at the same time. And then your cardiac muscles are depolarizing in one direction. What that means is it's basically trying to tell you that it's different from a nervous system. So you remember if we went through, let's see, this was last try, but we had our multipolar neurons that kind of looked like this. So you have your dendrites and your axons, and impulses could come in from a bunch of different directions, and then your axon terminals kind of looked like this too. So your axon terminals could go a bunch of different directions as well. This slide is basically trying to tell you that, hey, the heart doesn't work like that. The direction of depolarization and the direction of the impulse is basically going to happen in one direction, whereas in the nervous system it happens in multiple directions. All right, so your heart contraction, once your SA node begins, that starts the heartbeat. The impulse spreads to the AV node. The atria will contract after that. At the AV node, the impulses are going to pass through the AV bundle, the bundle branches, and the Purkinje fibers, and then blood will then be ejected from the ventricles, either going to the aorta if it's going systemically, or to the pulmonary trunk if it was a pulmonary circulation. So again, you're going to start at the SA node, then you're going to move to the AV node, then at that point your atria will contract. You'll go to the AV bundle. Well, I guess your atria are contracting here, so you have your AV bundle. Then you have your Purkinje fibers, or I sometimes call them Purkinje plexus, but fibers is the same thing. And that's basically how your heart is going to beat. Sometimes you have a couple of different types of heartbeats. Tachycardia is when you have a rapid heartbeat over 100 beats per minute. Bradycardia is when you have a really slow beat. This is less than 60 beats per minute. I don't know, did I say 100 beats per second? I hope I said minute, but now that I'm thinking about it, I might have said seconds here. All right, and then the next part that we're going to go through pretty quick here is the cardiac cycle. So basically your atria contract at the same time, and when your atria contract, when your atria relax, then your ventricles contract. So they work in opposite of each other. And a systole is your contraction, and a diastole is your relaxation. So we have a cardiac cycle. So you're going to want to write down this cardiac cycle. So these are just the events that it takes to complete one heartbeat. So step 1 is the mid to late diastole. This is basically when you're going to fill blood from the atria into the ventricles. So blood is going to be dumping into both of the ventricles. Ventricular systole, that means that now your ventricles are contracting. Systole means to contract. Okay. And then early diastole is when your atria are finished refilling and the ventricular pressure is really low. So even though it's showing a whole bunch of different steps, which there's really just 3 here. You have mid to late diastole, ventricular systole, and then early diastole. So that's basically the cardiac cycle. The thing that I always think is really crazy is how fast this occurs. So all of these cardiac cycles occur in 0.8 seconds. So less than a second that it takes for all of this to happen. So that goes ahead and wraps up our physiology of the heart, or I guess the first part of it. I hope you found that helpful.